For centuries, people have been scratching their heads over this one ancient prophecy, the story of Gog and Magog. It's this really mysterious text that some folks believe is actually unfolding right now, like right at the heart of today's global conflicts. So what's it all about? Let's decode it together.
And really, at the heart of it all is this pretty explosive question. Does a 2,500-year-old prophecy from the book of Ezekiel actually foretell a modern Russian invasion of Israel? I mean, that's a powerful theory, right? But is it accurate? Well, let's find out.
All right, here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll look at the ancient prophetic puzzle itself. Then we'll get into the great end times debate. After that, we'll ask, is Rosh modern Russia? We'll also cover the scholarly counterargument, and finally, wrap up with what it all means for interpreting prophecy today.
Okay, so our story really kicks off in the book of Ezekiel, chapter 38. The verse goes something like this: Son of man, set your face against Gog, of the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. Now, these names, Gog, Magog, Meshech, and Tubal, they're the key puzzle pieces we really need to get a handle on.
And what's pretty wild is that these names are super rare in the Bible. I mean, they only pop up here in Ezekiel, and then crucially, one other place, the book of Revelation. And that second mention, well, it describes a final battle that happens after a 1,000-year period of peace. And right there, that single detail, it creates this huge split among interpreters about when all this is supposed to go down.
And that right there brings us to the great end times debate. The core question is this: when does this battle actually happen? Is it before a prophesied golden age or after it? Because let me tell you, the answer totally changes how you understand the whole prophecy, and it all hinges on one key concept.
So before we dive any deeper, let's just quickly define a key term, the millennium. In this context, when we talk about the millennium, we're talking about that prophesied 1,000-year period of peace that's mentioned in the book of Revelation. Got it? Because understanding this is absolutely essential to get a grip on the two main sides of this debate.
Okay, so here's the bottom line. You've got two main camps, right? Camp number one says this battle is part of the whole Armageddon series of events that happens before the 1,000-year reign kicks off. But camp number two points to Revelation 20 and says, hey, it explicitly puts a Gog and Magog battle after those 1,000 years, so that has to be the right timing. This is the fundamental fork in the road for how people interpret this.
All right, now let's get into the really popular stuff. Let's look at how this debate fueled what is probably the most famous modern interpretation, the one made popular by guys like Hal Lindsey. The idea here is that Ezekiel's prophecy isn't some dusty old text about the past or the far-flung future. Nope, it's about right now, and the key players are modern nations you'd recognize on a map today.
So the case for Russia is basically built on a few linguistic connections that sound, well, pretty convincing on the surface. Step 1, the Hebrew word Rosh is identified as the ancient root for Russia. Step 2, Meshech is linked to the city of Moscow. And Step 3, Tubal gets connected to the Russian city of Tobolsk. Rosh, Meshech, Tubal, Russia, Moscow, Tobolsk. You can see how it all seems to fit together like a glove.
And to bolster this, Hal Lindsey even said, for centuries, men have recognized that Ezekiel's prophecy about the northern commander referred to Russia. So the argument is that this isn't some newfangled idea, it's an old one. And on the face of it, the case seems pretty strong. But, as you might guess, when we start digging into the evidence, the story gets a whole lot more complicated.
And this is where we need to bring in the scholarly counter-argument. You see, historians and linguists have taken a really close look at these claims, and, well, they found some pretty significant problems. And it all starts with the most important word in the entire theory, Rosh.
Okay, so here's the linguistic wrinkle. The Hebrew word Rosh can be a proper name, like the Prince of Rosh, but its main everyday meaning is just head or chief. So the phrase from Ezekiel could just as easily, and a lot of scholars would say more naturally, be translated as the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. See the difference? Suddenly, Rosh might not be a place at all. It could just be a title. Now here's where things get really interesting, especially when we look at how evidence is used. Supporters of the Russia theory often point to a 19th century German scholar, a guy named C.F. Kiel. And they're right. He did say Rosh could refer to a specific people, but they often leave out what he said next, his final conclusion on the matter. And here it is. Kyle's full quote basically says, yeah, he thought Rosh was a people, but then he adds, it is just doubtful that the name of the Russians is connected with this Rosh. Oof. So the very scholar that's often cited for support actually ends up undermining the whole theory. He's arguing against the connection. And what about those other connections? Meshech and Tubal? Well, they don't fare much better under close inspection. Scholar Edwin Yamayuchi, who's a real expert in this stuff, is pretty blunt about it. He calls the whole Meshech to Moscow and Tubal to Tobolsk thing groundless. He says it's a classic mistake, just connecting things because they kind of sound alike, without any real historical or linguistic proof. So let's just lay this out side by side. The popular theory points to Moscow and Tobolsk in Russia. But the actual scholarly evidence? We're talking ancient cuneiform texts. That's the old wedge-shaped writing from Mesopotamia. And other historical records. They consistently place the people known as the Mushku and the Tubal somewhere completely different, in Anatolia, which is, you guessed it, modern-day Turkey.
And then there's the final nail on the coffin, really, the timeline problem. According to scholar R.H. Alexander, the word Russia didn't even start being used until the 11th century A.D. We're talking about a gap of more than 1,500 years from when Ezekiel was writing. That makes a direct linguistic line from the ancient Hebrew Rosh to modern Russia. Well, it's pretty darn unlikely.
So, where does all this leave us? I mean, on one hand, you've got this really popular, super compelling theory, and on the other, a pretty strong scholarly critique that pokes some serious holes in it. What this whole thing really does is shine a spotlight on just how challenging it is to interpret these ancient texts in our modern world.
All right, so let's just quickly recap the big takeaways here. First, the popular Russia theory is mostly based on names that sound alike. Second, the scholarly analysis, using ancient records, points to people who lived in what we now call Turkey. Third, that whole debate about the timing, whether this happens before or after the millennium, that's still a huge point of discussion. And maybe the biggest lesson of all, we've seen how the entire meaning of a prophecy can literally hinge on how you translate a single word.
And all of that leaves us with one final, much bigger question, doesn't it? This whole debate over Gog and Magog, it's really a powerful case study. It forces us to ask a really tough question. How are we supposed to bridge the gap between these ancient texts, written for a very specific audience thousands of years ago, and our modern global world? There are no easy answers for sure, but it's a question that is absolutely essential to think about.